3 years after Everest was conquered, a Swiss team returned, not to repeat history but to challenge it, crossing jungles, ice falls, storms, and sickness, toward two summits that still demanded everything.
Hey, glad you're here. Welcome to the Himalayan Journals. Here on this channel, we bring to you real stories from century old field notes. We try to keep it simple and calm here. Think of it as a documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s, covering stories of indigenous wisdom, epic expeditions, and groundbreaking science, passed on just as they were recorded. Subscribe, zone out, binge.
In 1956, 3 years after Everest had been climbed, the Swiss Foundation for Alpine Research decided that its work in the Himalaya was not yet finished. Permission was obtained from the Nepal government. Climbers were contacted, and after careful preparation, a new expedition set out, this time with Everest and Lhotse as its objectives. At the beginning of March, the expedition members and 22 Sherpas from Darjeeling met at the frontier town of Jainagar. Pasang Dawa Lama was their sirdar. 10 tons of baggage were loaded onto 22 ox carts and taken across the Ganges Valley and the Tarai to Chisapani, where the Kamla River leaves the hills. On March 7th, 350 porters from Solu Khumbu joined them, engaged with the help of the Himalayan Club. The caravan moved north, crossed the Sun Kosi and dug out canoes, and climbed ridge after ridge until it reached Okhaldunga. From Taksindu Monastery, the route dropped into the Dudkosi Valley. The march passed through tropical forest, red rhododendron woods, and terraced fields of rice, maize, barley, and potatoes. The liaison officer, Prachan Mansingh Pradhan, acted as interpreter and helped establish good relations with local authorities. As the party moved higher, they learned a few words of Tibetan and Nepalese, and often met people who spoke some English. Chang was offered freely along the way. At 10 to 12,000 feet, the mountains began to feel close. The party spent 2 days at Namche Bazar, home to about 500 Sherpas. On March the 21st, 8 inches of snow fell and melted quickly in the sun. At Tengboche Monastery, they were warmly received by monks in red and yellow robes. Here, Fritz Luchsinger fell ill with acute appendicitis. While he was cared for by Dr. Eddie Leuthold, the others climbed nearby 18,000-foot peaks for acclimatization. When Luchsinger recovered, he remained at the monastery while base camp was established on April the 7th at 17,700 feet, at the north bend of the Khumbu Glacier. Most porters were paid off, and 35 Sherpas were retained and fully equipped. Base camp grew into a small village with tents, kitchens, a dispensary, and a meteorological station set up by Fritz Miller. Life at first was exhausting. Even short movements caused breathlessness, and simple tasks took hours. Gradually, by moving slowly, the party adapted. On April 7th, Ernst Reis and Ernst Schmid reconnoitered the Khumbu Icefall. The glacier dropped steeply from the Western Cwm and was broken into seracs and deep crevasses, constantly moving and roaring. Despite heat and danger, they reached 19,000 feet. Over the next days, routes were fixed with steps, flags, ladders, ropes, and bridges. Camp was established by April 11th, followed by Camps 2 and the 3rd. Work never ceased as crevasses widened, seracs collapsed, and storms threatened tents. While this continued, Von Gunten and Deal attempted Island Peak. Grimm and Marmot arrived with oxygen equipment, and Luchsinger returned recovered. Deal later developed pneumonia. Pasang Dawa Lama became ill, and Dawa Tenzing of Kumjung was appointed Sirdar. Camp 3 at 21,000 feet became an advanced base. By early May, Camp Parpurkur stood at 23,000 feet. Camp Fafe at 24,500 after days of cutting steps and fixing ropes on the Lhotse face. On May 9th, Camp 6 was set at nearly 26,000 feet. Pre-monsoon storms forced a retreat, but after rest and favorable weather reports, climbing resumed. On May 17th, Rice and Luke Singer reoccupied Camp 6. The next day, they climbed the couloir to the summit of Lhotse, reaching 27,890 feet. Missed limited photographs, but the ascent and descent were completed safely. Attention then turned to Everest. Camp 6 was moved to the South Col. On May 23rd, Schmid and Marmot left Camp 7 and climbed past the South Peak. After climbing Hillary's chimney, they reached the summit of Everest at 29,028 feet. They descended safely. The following day, Reist and von Gunten also reached the summit, staying for 2 hours before returning to the South Col. With weather worsening, the expedition withdrew. The descent through the icefall was dangerous, but by May 29th, everyone was safely back at base camp. Congratulations arrived from Sir John Hunt, Hillary, and Tenzing. 20 days later, the party reached Kathmandu. The hardships faded, but the journey, the monasteries, the icefall, the Lhotse face, and the days of success remained unforgettable.